Welcome to TechbrothersIT. In this video, we are going to learn what are linked services and what are datasets in Azure Data Factory. Without having these two guys, we will not be able to extract the data from sources. So we need to understand that. So linked services are much like connection strings. So if you have seen my SSIS videos where we create a connection to our SQL Server database, Oracle database, and all those, and which defines the connection information needed for service to connect to external resources. So very easy, it's a connection string that we need to use to connect to our external resources such as the SQL, Azure SQL DB, Oracle DB, and there are tons of other external resources. And now think of a way the data set represents the structure of data within the linked services stores. So think once you made the connection and the connection is done, and now you need to run the maybe store procedure. Maybe you need to use a table from where you would like to extract the data. So that's where your data set is going to be created. So here, and the link service define the connection to the data source. So read this definition. This is on the Microsoft website as well. I will put the link in the description so you can go through this. But actual part, I was pretty confused as well when you create your first pipeline and how exactly these linked services and data set work. So most of the time in my tutorial, I don't call it linked or linked. I mostly call it link services. So I don't know, it's just easy to say that, but they have linked services. So there is a D at the end. In this Azure portal, what I have Azure SQL DB right there, and then I have created the storage account there. So I do not have any Azure Data Factory here. So before even we need to use these data from different tables or storage, we need Azure Data Factory. So I deleted last night because I'm paying some money for this, because this is my paid subscription. So that's one of the reason I deleted the Data Factory and all other resources. So we are all good here. I'm not gonna use GitHub here or all that. So let's create the Azure Data Factory. Our Azure Data Factory is created, and we can go to the home here. And now what we are going to do, we are going to go to the resource group, and under the resource group we are going to see our different Azure Data Factories right there as well. It just got deployed, so it was not coming here. So TechbrothersIT ADF, okay, we are going to go open Azure Data Factory Studio, and then we are going to show you all those detail about linked services and data sets. So when you are going to come here first time, what you are going to see manage tab, and in the manager you are going to see linked services. Now I do not have any connection or linked services to any other external data source, so I can create that, and then we can use that to create our data sets and extract some data. So now there are multiple ways. Most of the time when I create these linked services, I always go to the author and create the pipeline, and inside the pipeline I also have the option to create the linked services if it is not already there. So let's do both of the ways. First of all, I have to create the linked services or connection string to my two sources. What source? I have Azure Blob Storage here, and second part I have is my SQL. So Azure SQL, that's the two connection or linked services I will be creating. So I can then use anything from these two external resources, such as the tables. I want to extract the data from table, I can do that. If I want to read the data from the blob storage containers also, I can use that, or write. So let's go to linked services, click here new, and now here these are all those external data store, or you call it external data sources available, so where you would like to make a connection. In my case, I'm going to do Azure SQL. So see right there, Azure SQL database, and I'm going to hit continue, and on top of that it's saying new linked service, and then it tells you the type of the external data source. So I'm going to give a very proper name, so I'm going to call it LNK TechbrothersIT DB. Actually it will be on server level, so you even don't have to provide actually yes, it is going to be connection string to the database level, not to the table level, so just the database level. So you have to provide the data, some specific name, so you would know that it is connecting to the TechBrothers database. So I will call LNK TechbrothersDB. So by doing that, I would know that it is connecting to the I can also do Azure SQL. So I can put all that information together, and because this linked services can be used in multiple pipelines, and it is the pointer or connection to the database. So it is a connection to TechbrothersDB. So now with the name is really good, so anybody can understand. So this is linked services that pointing to the TechbrothersIT DB. Now go to the subscription. In the subscription, you have to select the server, that's TechBrothers server, and now you select the database. So here TechbrothersIT database name, and then you have to provide a username. So in my case, this username is TB user, and we are gonna hit test connection failed because on the Azure side, what I have to do, I have to go to the right here on the server level and provide allow, go to the firewall, and I'm gonna do allow Azure services and resources to connect to this server. That's why it was failing. Okay, so it's successful. Now we come back and test our connection. It's all successful. So this is the one linked services that is created, and that is pointing to the our TechbrothersIT database. So click here on the JSON. You can see the code, and it tells you like, okay, a little bit of information about the name and the type, whatever the type is, and here is your connection string itself. So you can see that how it is connecting to your database. So this looks good, and user, and doesn't say password and all that here because it's encrypted. So you are all good. Now let's go back. So this is our connection to our one of the database called TechBrothers. Now I'm going to create another database, and we can create a connection string for that database as well. So if you right click here, new database, and I'm going to call this database sales. Okay, we can call it sales database, and we don't have to do a whole lot information here. I'm going to just click OK, and it's going to create the sales. Now if we would like to go back and create the connection string or linked services to our sales database, we have to create a new linked service. So we are going to create a new, and then we are going to go to the Azure SQL DB, and here you will be saying, I'm going to call this guy LNK sales DB. Okay, now we are going to select our subscription here, then we are going to select the server, we are going to go select the database. Still a database is not created yet, so it's taken some time, so let's wait for it. So think about that in case where you are reading data from your two databases. Maybe one is your source and the other database is your destination, and you will be creating two linked services. So you will be in one of that you will be connecting to the source, and then in the other one you will be connecting to the destination database. Okay, so we refresh the database here, and now we have sales here, and now you're going to provide a TB user and then provide a password. And then we are going to test our connection. Okay, test is successful. Now we have two linked services. One is our TechBrothers database, another one is the sales. So we can read the data from one and write to other one. Now let's create another linked services that will be pointing to our Azure Blob Storage. So if I go to Azure Blob Storage right here, but I don't have anything as of now. So people would like to create some containers, such as say, we are going to go ahead and say container input. The input container might have files that you will load every day, and then read those files and put those files into the other output folder or a container. So these are different containers you will create, and then you're going to create a linked service. In this case, as my blob storage is only one, I will be creating only one linked service that will be pointing to TechBrothers storage, and it will not be connecting to the container level. That's going to be inside our data sets. So it's a main connection to your connections to the your blob storage. So let's go there and create another linked service, and let's call it Azure blob, and now we are going to select that, and I'm going to call this LNK TechBrothers storage. Okay, so by doing that, the people would know that, oh, this is a linked services to the TechBrothers storage. Now you will be selecting your subscription here, and then you will be selecting the storage account. In my case, there is only one storage account, so I don't have to do a whole lot. There could be more storage account. As I said that you can create many storage account, but you will be creating a linked service for each of the storage. So I have 3 linked services here, and now I can go and create my all different pipelines and use them in my data sets. Now I'm going to go to the author, and here I'm going to go to the pipeline, create new pipeline, and now I'm going to first go here and in the TechbrothersIT, create new query, create table, DBO sale, ID integer, name of worker, and go insert into DBO sale, and ID 1, Amir. Okay, so I created this table in TechbrothersIT, and I can also create the same table in sorry, I have to run the whole thing. So I can create this table in sales as well. So click on sales and go to new query, and we can paste it there. So this table does not have any record. Now we can do one thing, go back here. We created the pipeline. Inside the pipeline, see right there, you have option to create a new data set, or you can go through the pipeline itself and create it. I always go to the pipeline, and honestly I don't even go to link services here and create the link services first. I always go to pipeline and start working on my pipeline, and when I bring the activity, I need to know, oh, I need to get the data from some data source, and then if there is no linked services available, I will just create one and you start using the data set. So anyways, in this case, let's say if I want to copy the data from one database TechbrothersIT to the sale, I can do that. Now we have a copy activity here, and I'm going to go to the source, and here in the source you see that source data set, and I do not have any data set as of now, so I have to create one. Once I hit new, it's going to ask me, hey, what type of data source you are using, like external data source. In my case, it's Azure SQL DB, remember, where we have created the linked services. So once we provide that, now it's going to give us option in the drop down all those linked services you have created for that type of data store. So in this case, as I'm reading, I can call it DS sale, and sale, and now it tells us that this is our data set sale, and now we can also put it input or source or something, so it will tell you this is source side data set. Now if you go to linked services, here it tells you like which database you would like to connect. That's our connection string. In our case, it is in TechbrothersIT database. That's where we created the sale data table and inserted one row. Now this is all good, and now it is asking you which table you would like to select. So remember, linked services are connection string to your main database, and then data sets or connection to your actual data such as table, view, that so it defines that list of or set of data that you need to extract it. I don't care about import schema and all that, it's okay. So we hit OK. Now our data set is ready, and you can see right there I can preview the data. So in the linked services, there is no way you can preview anything, because linked services connection string to your main database or to your main blob storage. Now in the data set, as it is defined a small portion to such as that connection to the database, and by using object in the database, you are able to extract that data. So you can see right there in the data set you have this option. Now you have select table, query, store procedure, and all that. So these all the options in the different data sets are depending upon the type of the data on the linked services you are using. In the blob storage, you are not going to have a table or query and all that. You're going to have file names. Okay, so now in the sync, if we go to sync, I have to create a new data set, because I need to write the data to different database. So I'm going to create new, and but we have already created the linked services. So I'm going to go to Azure database, and here, if you guys remember, so it's going to be DS sales out or destination. And if you remember that our linked services, what we are going to use, we are going to use sales DB linked service here. So and then we can provide a table name that we created is empty table, and we are all good. Now you understand that why we created the linked services, and then why we use the data sets. So next pipeline, they can use the same linked service and create their data sets. So the linked services mean connection. You will not have a, like, maybe you will have a maybe 50, 60, 70 linked services if you are using a lot of different type of resources. You don't want to create duplicated linked services, because when you are going to deploy these to the other production server or SIT, UAT, and all that, these are all the things that has to be there too. So you might want to think about that very wisely before you create the linked services. And if it is already there, you shouldn't be recreating it with different names. Now see that the data sets are created here, so we can see that now we can publish if we need to, but I can just leave them as it is. Let's click on debug, and you will be seeing the data loaded from our TechbrothersIT database to the sales database. So in this case, we use two linked services. And then we created two different data sets. So if I go back here and let's select the data from our sales table, let's see what we have. It should have one record by now if the pipeline has completed. Yes. So okay, so it got completed successfully, and the data is loaded. Now let's go to the other type of linked service. So one of the other linked service we created is called our linked TechbrothersIT storage, right? So it's called Azure Blob Storage. Let's take a look on the definition here, and it's pretty much the same. You have the name here, and then it tells you like what type it is, Microsoft data factories and the linked services. And here is telling you it's a type of Azure Blob Storage, and then it has the endpoint. So you can see that it is pointing to our blob storage, and then you have a credential and all that information. So let's cancel this out. Now think about a scenario where you are reading the data from the your Azure table, and then writing the data to the blob storage. So in this case, we already have the linked services. So this same scenario, we have TechbrothersIT database in which we have sales table. We need to get that table and put on the blob storage. So we are going to write the data to the CSV file. So let's go ahead and create a pipeline, and in the pipeline we will use the linked services and create new data set. So here, if you see, I'm going to go, it's in my new right there, and if I can go to source here and I can go further down there, you see there these are pipelines, right? And these are already, the data sets are already created as well. So these two data sets what we created here, if you have named them correctly and you know that what they are pointing to, what type of data they are returning to, your life is easy. So you do not have to create another data set here, or you don't have to create the linked service. So in this pipeline, if you notice there, and what I can do, I can use a DS sales source. Remember, this is getting the data from us from the TechbrothersIT database sale table. So if I want to see further details, I can click open, and inside that I can see all that. This is my linked service it is using, and if I want to go further edit and see more detail, I can go back to all the way where I created a linked service. So you can see right there. Okay, so we cancel this out. So often we go here and create parameters and all that. Let's say I want to change my table name and all that on the fly. When I run my pipeline, I can always go back and create the parameters and use them. So you see my watch my other videos, you will have the information there. So now what we have, we already have the source. That's our data set. We are getting the sales data from our TechbrothersIT database, and now we are going to go to the sink. In this sink, I do not have a data set. Ask me why, because I need to write the data to my blob storage. So I do not have a data set here, so I'm going to create a new data set. So I'm going to select Azure blob storage here, and then I'm going to say, okay, delimited text is fine, and now I will provide a proper name. Why? Because you guys have seen that we can reuse these data sets in different pipelines. So sale CSV, okay. So this tells us this is sales CSV, okay, to the blob storage, and I can always say blob, before that, so you would know that, and also say create. So you can provide very nicely names, so you can reuse them in other pipelines if you needed to. But honestly, do not use the same ones. If you are using a create file in the same different pipeline at the same time, it's going to be error out, right? So you want to make sure the purpose you understand, like reading from the same table is okay, but writing to the same data set, it means creating a new file from two different pipeline. That's going to give you error. But as I said, that the DB source, so that we just use that in the source, that's okay, because you can extract the data from the sales table in Techbrothers for multiple pipelines. So go to linked services here, and this is the linked service we created, LNK Techbrothers storage, that we are going to use. And here it asks you what type of containers and paths and directories you have. So if we go back to our storage, I don't have anything here. Oh, sorry, I do. Actually, I just created in the couple of containers, remember? So we created input container. We can use that. Right now, there is nothing inside the input container. So I can click on browse, and here in the browse, it will show me a list of all those containers. So click on input, and then you're going to hit OK. And now if you have further directories inside, you can choose that, or otherwise you can just leave this as it is. Yes, first we'll have header, and I don't care about schema and all that, so just leave that as it is. And we can say the name of my test file .csv. Okay, so we are gonna hit OK, and now see what happened. Okay, it is saying that schema import failed. No, okay, let's click on no. Okay, now we are all good. In this pipeline, what we did, we read the data, so we used two linked services. One linked service is our pointing to the TechbrothersIT database, and we are creating the data source, the DS sales source from there. And if you want to see that, as I told you, click on the open and go to the further edit, and you will see or track all the way back there where your linked service is pointing to. And other linked service that we used is in the destination or sync. So in right here, we use that linked service, and click right there, so you can see right there, that's the linked service we use. If you want to see further, you can always click on edit and go back all the way. So we created we have used two linked services. We created two data sets. In one data set, we are reading from the sales table from the TechbrothersIT database, and in another one, we are writing the data to the blob storage. So let's debug. And meanwhile, you see that right here in the datasets, as this dataset is reused, that's fine, and this is a new one we have created. So any dataset you are going to create in the pipelines, they will be settling right here under the datasets. So let's go to the Azure blob storage, and let's refresh, and here is our test file created. So now we go edit, and we should see one record there. So it read the record from the table and wrote to the CSV file. Okay, so I believe, or at least I'm thinking, your concept of linked service and dataset has been clear here, because we provide a couple of demos here. So linked services are connection strings to your database, or to your blob storage, or any other data sources, and then datasets are those definitions that get you the data, so such as getting the data from the table, pointing to a file, so it's specific to that object. So I hope this video is helpful. Thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe my channel if you like my effort, and I will see you guys in next video.